Hey, my name's Kai Dries, and today I'm going to talk about childhood apraxia of speech. So, to define childhood apraxia, it's essentially where the brain struggles to communicate with the muscles in the mouth that create sounds. So the neural connections just aren't working properly. And you don't want to confuse this with the intelligence of children who have apraxia, because they can intend to say something, but their expression is off because of the movement of those mouth muscles. And this is based off information from the American Speech Language Hearing Association. I actually heard about them like months ago because my cousin Robin is a speech language pathologist, and I interviewed her for a class last semester. So IDEA has 4 tenets of speech and language disorders, and they are communication, impaired articulation, which is what childhood apraxia of speech would fall under. I'll just refer to it as CAS from now on. Language impairment and vocal impairment. So to go over them briefly, communication is just fluency, so just speaking smoothly. Articulation is pronouncing specific sounds. Language is comprehending words, and vocal is just it can be just throat issues that prevent the words from sounding right. And with apraxia, it's common that it'll be more than just articulation. It'll also be communication and language impairments. So what will a speech language pathologist do to determine CAS? So there's oral motor skills that they can check, and these are basically just like, you can think of these as skills you use to eat, drink, speak, and it's specifically like the speed at which you open your mouth, the range of motion, the strength, and the coordination. Then there's speech melody and intonation. Speech melody is just the pitch change over any duration of time, and intonations over a sentence. And intonation lines up with post-lexical, because post-lexical is conditions of speech that is syntactic, so over a sentence or a phrase, and lexical is just the units that make up a single word. And then finally, they'll check for readability of the child's speech, so can someone else understand them, essentially. There's characteristics of learners with apraxia. So the main ones just being inconsistent pronunciation of words, the wrong syllable being stressed, and distortions of the word. And other skills often suffer with children who have apraxia, and those are motor skills, language development, and language arts skills, so like reading and writing. So they may need like special attention in those classes. And I have a video clip I want to show of a kid saying the word up that shows inconsistent pronunciation.
Go. Very good.
I apologize, I'm just trying to find the right moment. So with that kid, you could hear the inconsistency. It was like poo, pa, like there was no U's at certain points. Like it was just like inconsistent pronunciation, and the way he moved his mouth was just kind of abnormal, and that's pretty common with people who have apraxia. So with the causes, sometimes it's hard to discern, and it will be considered idiopathic, which means there's no outward neurological or genetic conditions that constitute their speech disorder. But if they are, the neurological element is usually trauma to the brain, seizures, stuff of that nature, or genetic disorders, so stuff you get from your family. And then some other important things about CAS. So the work that SLPs do with these children is very intensive to get them up to speed and be able to at least communicate what they want and what they need, just like the basics. And it can, as we saw from that video, that was a more severe example, but it can be more moderate where the words, they have like some fluency, but it just sounds a little bit off. So there's websites like Apraxia Kids to help these SLPs with research-based findings. I found a couple summaries, and there's just a lot of resources on that website. I mean, it's a nonprofit organization, so it's got to have the connects. And then children with apraxia often use alternative communication systems. So this can just be a tablet with words or symbols on it, or it could also be them using sign language. And you can see an example of this on this slide. And I think this would actually be a tablet that a child with apraxia would use, because they understand the words, but they have a hard time expressing it, and the tablet is the means to express the words. So it's not a bad idea to present materials with either sign language or allow the students to respond with tablets like these, like worksheet problems. And like as a teacher, or more like a speech language pathologist, it's not concerning if a student is like preferring to use this, because as long as they're getting the practice with the SLP, they're going to make progress. It's just very intensive, as we mentioned. And then lastly, there was a study in Jordan about the relationship between self-esteem and speech disorders. And the main finding was that the type of disorder was the most influential factor on self-esteem. So since apraxia occurs on a spectrum and can affect many avenues of communication, so like those language arts skills, the communications, and the language impairments from the IDEA tenets, like the self-esteem can shoot down as the apraxia becomes more severe, but it all depends on the child. So to improve that self-esteem as a teacher, we can do peer support groups. So I think it's important to have a friendly environment that makes the student feel like they're cared for. Materials to improve the self-concept, and that might have to be in their favored mode of communication, so it could be sign language. And then we have awareness of student needs. So this is communicating with the SLP to know what the student's communication goals are, and talking with the parents about things happening at home, and also like keeping emotional trackers of the student's mood. So if intervention is needed, it can happen, and the teacher has a better idea of how to quell the situation. And that was my presentation, and here are my references.